All right, folks, welcome in. Who is out there right now? I hope last week was pretty helpful for you. Susie Swope, that's what I'm talking about. Grow Gone Green, good to see you on here. If you have any trouble hearing me or video's going crazy, just let me know. I think we got to figure it out, so it should be good to go this week. All right, who else is out there? I don't know how to tell other than if somebody says something on the comments. I'm sure there's some way of knowing. But I was going to answer a few questions here, and then we'll get to it. So, can anybody hear me out there? Hey, Devin, good to see you. Awesome. Devin, were you here last time? Last week? Are you faithful? Facebook? All right, so yeah, I'm going to jump into it. We got a bunch more questions here from people, and kind of endless questions. And so hopefully I can get more answers. And usually if you answer one question from one person, you're answering a bunch of questions from a bunch of other people. So hopefully this is really helpful. And if you have any questions while we're just here, please let me know in the sidebar, and I'll try to get to those since you are here right now. So one person had asked, basically, how do you find a good naturopath in her area or his area? I'm not sure if it was a him or her, and I don't actually know where they live either. But basic thing is, I would say for all doctors would be when you go in to see them. This is outside of probably emergency care. Is the doctor looking at you holistically? You know, say you come in with joint pain, and if the doctor recommends you to just take ibuprofen or aspirin or a painkiller, or just says, you know, take a natural painkiller for that, and doesn't talk to you about, you know, movement, about your diet as a foundational thing, then you're probably going to want to, you know, move on from them, or ask them, you know, hey, you know, I came here for to cure my ailment, or at least get as close as possible to cure, and so you don't want to just, you know, take a pill, either pharmaceutical or natural. You would really like to work towards a cure. So that'd be probably number one for any doctor, whether it's a naturopath, a medical doctor, chiropractor, osteopath, nurse practitioner, any of them, is you know, is food the foundation, and making sure, you know, you're getting the right foods in. Your habits, are they expressing health, and are they looking at, you know, your sleep patterns, your stress levels, your relationships, all these things, because they all massively impact you know, our well-being and whether or not we're going to thrive, even if it is something just as simple as maybe an arthritis kind of thing. So welcome, Lisa. Hey, Maria, glad to see ya. Hope Arizona's treating you okay. So yeah, on that thought, there's I talked to a patient today, or the family member of a patient, and they were saying how you know, a family member had passed away, and the wife now was experiencing extreme anxiety since this has happened, and that from her husband passing away, and now she's having all these health issues. She can't eat anything, just all kinds of craziness going on in her body, and you know, she's being loaded up with all these medications trying to compensate for that. You know, before her husband had these issues, she had zero health concerns. I'd actually seen her husband many times, and I'd seen her, because they're an elderly couple, and I'd seen her many times with her husband. She was just always taking care of him, doing a great job. But he passes away. She goes from having zero health issues now to essentially having almost all kinds of health issues, to the point where she's in the emergency room multiple times now, just in the last couple months. And you know, it's all based on a you know, a psychological state, and it just goes to show you that stress, lifestyle stuff, where we're putting our strength, our hope, can greatly affect our health. So we want to please do not overlook relationships, sleep patterns, the stress, your job, and how your body is metabolizing all that, because it's having a massive impact on your health. And we don't want to believe a lot of times, but it is. I can think of another patient who, for basically 7 years since I started seeing her, she's had significant issues with a job she's in. She essentially hates her job. She doesn't want to go to it. She gets this anxiety and all this digestive stuff every Monday morning before she starts. Talked to her for a long time about, hey, you really probably should start looking at a different job, different way of going about getting income. But she still hasn't changed. And literally every passing year, her symptoms worsen, and she gets more autoimmune-like symptoms. And there's no medication, there's no 15 supplements, there's not a dietary change that can be made that will help get her out of that situation, because her body has just really been damaged, and there's a ton of trauma related to her occupation, not physical trauma, but mental, emotional trauma. And really the thing that needs to happen is her stepping out of that job position and finding a new work, even though that can seem very daunting. Sometimes the biggest thing for us to do is actually change. If we don't love our occupation, we really need to change it, because that's something we do, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Some people 6 days a week, maybe 4 days a week, 10-hour shifts. So do not overlook relationships and job situations and whether or not you're actually enjoying what you do on a daily basis, because that is massively impacting whether or not your body is on a healing state, or your body is slowly but surely deteriorating over time. So strongly consider that. Don't overlook it, please. So if you're going to choose a naturopath, look for somebody that's going to go food first, promote lots of physical activity. It's going to look at your habits. It's going to look at you holistically, your sleep, your relationships, and is not just going to give you basically a supplement in place of giving you a pharmaceutical medication, because that's what we call green allopathy. That's not naturopathic medicine. We got to look at the whole person. First, do no harm, and look at all the ways we can remove obstacles to cure from a person's life. The more usually it's harder to heal somebody completely if there's a bunch of obstacles in the way, such as trauma from relationships, trauma from workspaces. A terrible diet would be a obstacle to cure. Not lack of physical activity, sedentary lifestyle, those would be obstacles to cure. Going to bed at midnight every night or 1 a.m. That's an obstacle to cure. So we got to look at all that stuff, which hopefully you guys are all thinking about that already. All right, so we got another person was asking a couple digestive issues here, talking about doing like a histamine diet and whether or not they can eat fermented foods and stuff. So histamine diets, there are low histamine diets, being that you are eating foods that are not going to promote histamine activity in the body. Histamine is basically something that kind of is allergenic and would irritate us, can cause all kinds of issues, everything from hormonal issues, migraines, headaches, to IBS and eczema, dermatitis, psoriasis, all that kind of stuff, even asthma. However, there is a lot of promotion of doing an antihistamine diet. I'm not saying there's no time to do this, but generally speaking, if you do an antihistamine diet, you only want to be on that for like 2 weeks. If you're on that for 2 weeks, the reason being is that almost every food, every meat substance, almost every fruit has some kind of histaminic activity to it. And so an antihistamine diet, if anybody's ever been on it, will find that there's essentially no food that you can really end up eating if you're truly going to go antihistamine. You can drink water, basically. So if we just lower some of the solid histamine foods, which if you just type in Google, antihistamine diet, you'll come up with a whole plethora of different dietary strategies related to antihistamines foods. But I wouldn't, I wouldn't expect any miracles from eating an antihistamine diet, basically. And true, eating lots and lots of fermented foods. So people drinking tons of kombucha, eating lots of sauerkraut, kimchi, all these kind of things, tons of kefirs and water kefirs and coconut kefirs. You definitely can create trouble, especially if you do have an overactive histamine response, or your digestive tract has difficulty breaking down histamine, namely because there's a particular enzyme called diamine oxidase that may not be sufficient in your body, you can definitely cause significant issues. In fact, there was just a patient earlier this week that I was telling, you know what, really, you're drinking so many kombuchas, multiple times a day sometimes, and I said, you know, let's just get rid of these kombuchas, because that in and of itself could be causing significant imbalances in your gut bacteria. I'm not saying kombuchas are terrible, but they do, as my wife likes to point out to people, often Dr. Alma, that they do contain all gram-negative bacteria, and gram-negative bacteria are the type of bacteria that are essentially associated with all the major imbalances in the microflora of humans, whereas the gram-positive bacteria is usually what you're getting from, say, your probiotic supplements like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. So you would want, you've got to be careful with just shifting to these kind of cool stuff, trendy stuff, and because we can create a lot of issues for ourselves. So bottom line on this whole fermented thing is, most common thing right now I see is people drinking ridiculous amounts of kombucha. Maybe should slow that down a little bit, and not think that we have to eat tons of fermented food every day, like that's what people have been doing for 10,000 years or something. It's not really true. Most of these people that you go to, these in the blue zones, we call them, where people live to these long healthy lives, that there's a lot of centenarians there. They aren't eating tons and tons of fermented foods. In fact, their main food substance tends to be things like purple potatoes and different types of tubers, which they're cooking them up and eating them. They're not fermenting and all that kind of stuff. So don't feel like you're missing out because you're not fermenting everything you're eating. Okay, there's a really good balance we need to keep here. All right, so here we go. The other things to consider, yeah, so if you're having digestive issues, you really want to look at stress response. We're all going to have stress all the time, nonstop, forever. However, it's all about how we handle that stress. And like I think I may have mentioned last time, if we can think of stress as something that could help us grow, as opposed to something that just can continue overwhelming us, then we're going to do ourselves a world of good. So I really wouldn't try to say I'm going to live this stress-free existence, because that in itself is going to be stressful, because it will never happen. But we need to look at how we're handling stress, how are we handling our schedule during the day, how are we creating margin in the day. I used to intern with this medical doctor in Florida when I was in medical school, go down there every 6 months or so. And one thing he told me was that, a big thing for me to consider is to always make sure there's margin. So am I rushing to the office every day? Am I rushing to pick up my kids every day? Am I rushing, to eat breakfast, then rushing to eat lunch, then rushing to eat dinner, rushing in to work out, and then rushing to see if I'm going to the airport, am I getting there just right in time? I got to run in there, get my seat as fast as I can, that kind of thing. We really got to think about margin. I'm not saying that's the easiest thing for me to do either, but first thing I would do is, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, it's okay, how can I make it so I have a 5-minute buffer around what I do in my life? Give myself a 5-minute buffer. So for instance, even setting up this Facebook Live, so I was here about 40 minutes early to make sure that we got this right this time. So hopefully it is right. But if I was able, I could have just thought, hey, I'm just going to run in there, plug these things in instead of using the wireless, and hope it works. And then, it doesn't work. And we're all geez, all I'm seeing is a scratchy screen again. And it would have stressed me out, or it would have heightened my heart rate. I'd probably been sweating a little bit. Whereas now I'm just chatting at a little camera set in front of me. So margin, strongly consider that if you have digestive issues. That would be a great way, one simple little way of making stress less of a big thing on you, if you created just a little teeny bit of margin. And you want to talk about getting histamine levels to be lower. That would be another great way, is to make it so that your body isn't continually going into these adrenaline rushes, and have an epinephrine skyrocket all the time, which is what's going to happen if we're rushing here, rushing there, running to the grocery store, then running back out, trying to get to say soccer practice, and then we got to run home, get dinner ready, sit down, let's eat it really fast, and then because I got to go back out somewhere else. And if we create a little bit of margin, it's going to make the opportunity for the parasympathetic dominance to reign supreme. And parasympathetic dominance is where your body is in a rest relaxation mode, which that is the healthy state. That is where our immune system is functioning tip top at its highest level. And we know we're less likely to get sick. We're more likely to have bowel movements that are consistent and regular, less likely to get headaches, migraines, anything you can imagine that would be negative for our body is going to happen less if our body isn't, shooting through these adrenaline surges on a regular basis. We just want those just here and there, like when we're about to get hit by a car and we need to get out of the way in a hurry. All right, so yeah, we talked about slowing down eating, and then what other ones we got here? Tips on naturopaths. So yeah, if you're on, and then I got a person was talking about they don't want to get on anti-anxiety medications, and they have irritable bowel disease. So irritable bowel disease is basically where your digestive system isn't working very efficiently, and you're having difficulty with motility, which means that the peristaltic movements from my throat all the way down my esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine are a little spastic, which ends up over time you start fermenting a lot of foods, getting a lot of gas, bloating, all that, which nobody likes. And at the bottom of that usually is antibiotic use, oral contraceptive use, anorexias, bulimias, those kind of things in the historically, or just a over controlling need to control foods and control any little thing that comes into our body. Generally, I would say a controlling spirit is usually present when there's an irritable bowel syndrome activity going on, or very commonly. So I would basically look at as a therapy beyond what we've already talked about as far as managing stress and creating margin and those kind of things. Eating our food more slowly, chewing regularly, those kind of things that we want to be doing. Maybe we aren't doing what we want to be doing already and we know about. It would be to consider things like ginger. Ginger is amazing for gut motility. Even if you have, say, SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, basically we get too much bacteria of the wrong type growing in our small intestine, which shouldn't be there. And that is literally 100% related to the fact that the activity, the waves of smooth muscle activity going from the stomach to the large intestine through the small intestine are not consistent and efficient. So bacteria over time start coming up and invading the small intestine there, which is no good. And I've had plenty of patients with SIBO, and it's can be very difficult to treat because there's getting motility going in the small intestine is a real task, and it ends up affecting them mentally as well as the physical abdominal symptoms they have. So motility is huge there. And I would say the number one thing, the easy thing we can all kind of get to would be ginger as a motility agent. Also bitters, eating things, a lot of greens and stuff can also be really helpful for motility, or actually just getting bitter herbs in a tincture and using those, that can also help gut motility. But for the most part, ginger is probably the best thing, and most people can get their hands on it super cheap, or not cheap, but inexpensive to get your hands on. So if you had small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, you got a lot of the things you got to think about, but I would put ginger, top of my list of things to just simply help with that gut motility, and as well as the if you have irritable bowel, of any of the different irritable bowel syndromes, I'd be thinking ginger as one of my main go-tos. And literally, if you just drink ginger tea 2-3 times a day, there's a lot of other things. It's really good for circulation. There's plenty of things related to like Alzheimer's, dementia with consuming lots and lots of ginger. But if you've got the digestive issues going on, ginger would be top of your list, best friends, unless you're allergic to it. All right, so I had, these are always people, more these weight loss questions. People are trying to lose weight, and they're doing everything right, essentially is what people are saying, and they're not getting the results they're expecting. So I love to talk about physical activity. It's one of my favorite subjects, because you can make so much happen. All right, so I'll just step back real quick. Somebody has a question about H. Pylori. Mary has a question. But since we're talking about digestion, so yeah, H. pylori is a big deal. I mentioned this last time on Facebook Live, but there's this thing called broccoli sprouts. And there's these amazing Japanese studies showing that if you ate a couple handfuls of broccoli sprouts, which you're gonna have to sprout these at home because they're not in the grocery stores. They look just like alfalfa sprouts essentially, but they're just kind of spicy. If you were to eat broccoli sprouts, a couple handfuls, multiple times a week, over about 6 weeks, you could actually completely eradicate H. pylori. And I can tell you, not only are there Japanese studies on this, but I have actually done this in practice for some patients who were very, very financially strapped and really could not afford to pay for the different nutraceuticals that we often use, like mastic gum and deglycerized licorice and some of those kind of things to help eradicate the H. pylori. So yeah, I would definitely use ginger. That'd be good. That'd be helpful, for overall digestive support. But broccoli sprouts are a game changer. I'm telling you, those things work amazingly. You just got to sprout them. You can go to sproutpeople.org, watch the video, and then follow through with it because it works. It works so good. So has anybody out there sprouted broccoli before? If you have, give me a thumbs up. All right, so I have been eating them. Any other food advice, paleo vegan? Yes, ginger tea is an exceptional way to get the ginger in. Carol. See, paleo vegan. Yeah, so I would, if you've been eating broccoli sprouts very regularly, keep it up. I would definitely consider getting retested. So standard now is an H. pylori breath test. So get retested for the H. pylori. If you still have it, then you definitely want to move on to some other stuff. I would maybe add in some either more broccoli sprouts. I'm telling you, broccoli sprouts are it's crazy how these phytochemicals in there will kill the H. pylori as well as eradicating a ton of other yeast species and other bacteria that are not Enterococcus species that are not helpful. Also Pseudomonas. There's studies on that with broccoli sprouts. So, but they won't kill your own bacteria. You're good. The Lactobacillus bifidobacterium strains can actually help build those positive bacteria. So yeah, I would also look. There's I was saying mastic gum is really helpful for H. pylori. But I would definitely talk to your practitioner about what if it's still present, get it tested, and if it's still present, you need to do some other stuff. It's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. It is pretty simple though to get rid of H. pylori. I've seen it so many times be taken care of, and people's lives go from 0 to hero in a hurry when you do get rid of it. I would also consider. So we're talking about stress response and why H. pylori would even find itself in your digestive tract. That's normally the stomach produces a bunch of hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid would incinerate any kind of pathogens that are not beneficial for you. And H. pylori would be one of them. Hydrochloric acid could easily kill that. So if H. pylori is present, then it means that there's something going on with the stomach there as far as the amount of hydrochloric acid being produced. So you really do need to go back as well and look at what is the stress response of my body, what's the health of my hypothalamus, my thyroid, my adrenal glands, what's the balance there? Because there's definitely plenty of practitioners who work heavily in H. pylori or do a lot of research in H. pylori who would suggest almost as an initial therapy before even trying to just simply kill H. pylori would be to work on what we call the HPA axis, which is your hypothalamus in your brain, that gland, your pituitary gland, and then your adrenal glands, and making sure that there's a really good autonomic nervous system balance there. Otherwise, if you're not in parasympathetic mode, which is that rest relaxation mode, you're just not going to produce enough hydrochloric acid. And the chances of you having, eating something which has H. pylori on it is really high for all of us, but all of us don't have H. pylori, causing us issues, which would tell us that, there's a lot of people where the autonomic nervous system is a little off balance, and there's others where it's fine and they're producing plenty of acid and, eradicated every time. So definitely look at overall stress response, and I would definitely talk to your practitioner about, what could I do, or maybe supplementally, what things could I use, adaptogens I could use to help modulate my stress response, or what margin could I work into my day? Am I, eating on a good schedule? Am I sleeping well? You got to look at all those things to get rid of these chronic infections. Yeah, you're welcome, Mary. No problem. So Chelsea, hopefully it's Chelsea or Chelsea. What is H. pylori? So H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori is a bacteria, a pathogenic bacteria that invades the stomach lining. It's a common cause of ulcers in the stomach, and acid reflux, heartburn so that's its most common symptoms, are causing ulcers or gastritis, but it also will cause, some people get skin stuff going on, chronic fatigue, all kinds of really interesting symptoms that have been linked to H. pylori, just like with any other chronic infection. Some people have it really intensely, other people have it pretty moderately. But yeah, it's definitely something to look at. I would always look at that at some point if there's, one, digestive symptoms present, and two, you have a myriad of kind of interesting symptoms that don't really fit into any particular box. And a lot of other stuff has come back as normal. No problem. Great to hear. Yeah, those broccoli sprouts were a game changer. That's awesome, Tanya. All right, so I got this, try to get some of these questions answered. So this person, yeah, two people, they were trying to lose weight, doing everything right, but it's not working. So just a few things I was going to mention, especially on the physical activity front, because I feel like the physical activity front is something like you can just kind of go do, whereas the food front, though food is where it's at, food is definitely huge. It takes a lot more gumption and habit change and accountability and support, because the foods we eat tend to be ingrained into our subconscious, and our cells love eating certain foods. And so it'd be very, very difficult to switch the foods we are currently eating, even if we really need to. However, sometimes if we just gain more fitness and feel healthier, because we can run faster, or we can run farther, or we can lift more weights, or we can do a particular workout faster than we did before, that gives us this internal confidence and momentum that permits us then to go back and look at our foods and say, okay, maybe I can drop that piece of bread I have with my eggs every morning, or maybe I can skip out on my mocha and get a Americano, or something like that. Or maybe I can just I can chill on the amount of instead of putting 6 bags of sugar in my coffee, which people do this all the time. I get to hear it all the time. I can put some honey in my coffee, and that'll do. So these are just 5 things you could try that actually have research behind them, and will be very effective. And we'll kind of get rid of some myths here about exercise too. But I would consider, so say you go do a workout, and maybe you're doing some lunges or you're doing some presses. Something to do would be to, instead of going as fast as you can, you could go for 4 seconds, and you count to 4. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're pressing the weight up. And then on the way down, you go 1, 2, 3, 4. You do it like that. So basically changing the tempo up. And there are studies that show that by changing the tempo, so if you always do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, this 4 seconds up, 4 seconds down, then I would say, well, then the thing to do would be to go fast as you can, change it up. Now, instead of going 4 seconds up, you go 1 down, 1 up, 1 down, 1 up. Because there are studies showing that will increase what your EPOC, which basically means the amount of energy expenditure you will have over the next 24 to 48 hours after having done that workout, as opposed to, like I rehearse all the time, is if we do the same thing, the same tempo, the same intensity, the same weight, the same exercise over and over again, our EPOC becomes lower and lower and lower and lower and lower, which is the amount of energy required over the next 24 to 48 hours to essentially recover our body from that workout. Hopefully that makes sense. So I would definitely change your tempo. That'd be something to strongly consider. The other thing would be so to train to failure. So that means that, say you do 10 reps of something, you would want your 10th rep, your 9th rep, your 8th rep to be extremely difficult. If they're not extremely difficult, then you're not training to failure, and you won't get the same calorie burn for the next 24 hours that you would have got if you had done it to failure. So that's really, really valuable. I'm not saying every single workout you have to think, oh man, I'm not doing a good job because I'm not going to complete failure every time. But I would, if you need to make body composition changes or you really want to increase your fitness in the least amount of time, in the most efficient manner than you want, that's what I'm about. Efficiency, and let's not put a ton of time into it if we don't have to, is to go to failure, change your tempos up, all right? And without injuring yourself, of course. The other thing was I want to dispel this myth about fasted exercise or fasted cardio, fasted workouts. So there's a lot of people that will say, very popular podcasts, even friends of mine, that talk about fasting before you do a workout, saying that that's going to burn more calories. You can become leaner by doing that. So it's true within the actual workout window. Say if you worked out for 1 hour and you came into that fasted, you would actually burn a little bit more calories during that window, and some of that would come from fat. However, the amount of calories you will burn afterwards, that EPOC, what I was saying, the next 24 to 40 hours, is significantly less compared to the person that actually ate a little bit of food before they did their workout. So it is, you can do, if you love fasted workouts, and go for it. I'm not saying you feel free, but if you're finding you're not making gains in your fitness, or you're finding you're not making gains in your fat metabolism, your fat loss, that kind of thing, then I would strongly encourage you to actually eat a little bit of food, say like 5, 10, 8 grams of protein. Even a banana would work before your workout, and make sure you eat it in a time frame that's you can digest it and you feel comfortable in your workout. You want to feel energized and revved up, but you want to be able to go into a workout and put out full effort. So you need enough fuel in your tank to be able to put out full effort. If you can't put out full effort, say because you are in a fasted state and the body just can't go because there's not enough energy reserve, then the amount of calories you're going to burn over the next 24 to 40 hours will be significantly less than if you were to be fueled going into the workout. So got that one? There's so many random ideas out there. People get write entire books about things that over the long haul they're not going to help you out. So I'm really sorry about that. Health and fitness in general can be pretty hard to keep track of, and keep track of what is actually legit and what would work for the majority of the population. So consider that. Then the other thing would be I would highly suggest, instead of cardio, saying, okay, 4 days per week, I'm going to do strength training. So strength training would consist of, that could be anything from bicep curls to shoulder presses to bench presses to rows to pull-ups to squats to lunges, deadlifts, even leg extension, hamstring curls, anything that is putting stress on your body, resistance on your body, that you would come to a point where you're like, I cannot do that anymore, that's too heavy. So that could be at 8 reps, that could be at 10 reps, that could be at 15 reps, but at a point where you could come to failure, which that could also be sprinting. But just going on, say, an elliptical machine or a stair climber or a treadmill, and though it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it, and if you enjoy it, please continue doing it. But if you're the person that needs to or is really wanting to see some kind of body composition transformation, or you really want an anti-aging effect going on where you're building muscle tissue, then it is unfortunately there's no other way around it other than to invoke strength training as a regular habit in your life. So I hope you guys are cool with that. And when you do the strength training, I would promote like about anywhere from 10 seconds to about 60-second break between sets would be really handy. You don't 3 minutes, you're talking on your phone and then you're like texting somebody and that kind of stuff. You're really you're missing out on a lot of huge benefits that you could be getting in this otherwise probably short amount of time you have to put into a workout. All right, so hopefully I really hope that some of the people that have asked these questions, especially related to this whole weight loss, because that's kind of like it's a difficult area. I'm not saying it's not, it's very challenging, but I see so many times when people actually engage in these types of fitness activities that they see massive changes in their body composition and even just in their general confidence and momentum for health by doing these things. And that then just starts spraying over into being able to change food habits more easily, change sleep habits more easily because you want to be energized for your workout, and those kind of things. So hopefully people, some of you maybe have asked these questions and you're able to put them in action, and then we can hear, you know, a couple months down the road how you are just crushing it and loving all of this stuff. All right, so I'm trying not to make it go as long as it did last time, because I know it's like, man, it's, you know, hour and 10 minutes out of people's lives. Though I think it's awesome information. If you have any little questions that you want to ask in the comments, go for it. Otherwise, I'll answer a few more that were set up here. So, yeah, so a person was asking about gluten. Basically, they eliminated gluten from their diet. They're still having a lot of digestive issues. And then another person said, hey, I'm going to, I eat wheat products and I don't have any issues, but I go to like Europe and I have all these, I have issues here in US with wheat products, but I go to Europe and I don't have any issues. So something to consider there is there are plenty of people now we're finding that aren't actually gluten. So the gluten is the protein in wheat products, or barley or spelt or rye, and tons of other processed foods. You know, people aren't actually allergic or sensitive or intolerant of the gluten protein itself. It's actually a lot of the glyphosates, which are the come from Roundup and a lot of the genetic modification of foods. So a common reason for a person to be able to go to Europe and eat grains and stuff and not have issues, and then come back here and it's like you know, life is torture, is because of these GMOs, genetically modified organisms, that have been added to foods here in America that are not permitted in most European countries. So, and some people say, you know, well, I'm in torture when I eat wheat, but I don't show up as wheat intolerant, so it's not wheat. It's true, it's not wheat. It's not wheat's fault. But there's no way around it in America, really, unless you know, you want to buy some wheat products from, you know, Egypt, or, you know, some other place that have like I think it's called Yukon wheat, I believe is the name of it. That is a very ancient wheat that supposedly doesn't have any genetic modification to it. But generally speaking, though, with wheat, something I would consider is that wheat, whether it's genetically modified or not, spikes our blood sugar very, very high, very, very fast. So most of us have some kind of insulin resistance going on because of the speed of life, and because of you know, life stressors, and maybe bacterial derangement, or just like carrying extra weight on us. We'll end up, or sedentary lifestyle, will end up with some insulin resistance. So throwing something in there that is highly glucose raising is not exactly a super good idea. All right. Europe food is just amazing. It's good to hear, Mary. I know, it's too bad what we do to our food over here. Yes, Mario, that's exactly what I was talking about. So yeah, that wheat, some people can handle that really well. Now, if you are literally sensitive to wheat, you still won't be able to handle it because it's still wheat. But generally speaking, there are plenty of people that respond well. The only problem is if it's grown in America, say you might have to actually import your flour from, or your bread from another country, because once it's grown in America, there's so much cross-contamination that it's hard to maintain an actual wheat species that is not genetically modified, even if they say it's organic, non-GMO, all this kind of stuff. I actually had a patient who's a farmer, an organic farmer in Oklahoma, and for a long time he was farming corn, but just next door to him were farms that were not organic farms, and you know, they're spraying their stuff, doing all that kind of thing. And so after a while, you know, he actually just gave up farming his organic corn, because he said there's so much, you know, there's bees going here, bees going there, there's all these bugs landing on one plant coming to the other plant, and so you would have all this cross contamination, and he could never really feel confident that even though his was organic, he wasn't using any of these things, he still wasn't confident that his corn was truly not genetically modified and not was actually organic, because there was so much cross contamination, and the wind's blowing, you know, and there's buds coming from one side or the other, and so yeah, lots of issues, unfortunately. Trying to keep things actually not genetically modified in America right now, if you grow it here. So, my 17-year-old son, who knows everything, thinks it's bad that I drink a gallon of carbonated water a day. Just water, no sugar, nothing added. Can I explain to him why it's not bad? Because I like to be right. Sure. So, yeah, I mean, there's nothing we know negative about drinking just carbonated water in and of itself. I would, if you do drink carbonated water a lot, I would strongly consider maybe washing your mouth out or taking a sip and swishing in your mouth of just regular water after every so often through the day, because there's a little bit of research showing maybe it does affect our enamel a little bit. But generally speaking, it seems to be pretty benign. I will tell you that it doesn't matter where you get your carbonated water. For instance, the two most popular brands out there of carbonated water, if you buy it at the store, would be the Perrier and the Pellegrino. So Perrier is extremely acidic. It wouldn't be the one I would recommend. Pellegrino is definitely less acidic. Only problem with Pellegrino and Perrier and a lot of them that are on the shelves now is that they're finding these microplastics in them. So that's no fun. So I would suggest maybe getting your own, which is actually what we have at our house, is you filter your own water and then you get a carbonator. So these little things that ours looks like a penguin basically, and it carbonates the water for us, and then extremely unlikely to have plastics in it because you're getting it from well, I guess it's city water, still potentially could, but way less likely than if you're getting it from a massive produce source like say Pellegrino, Perrier, that kind of thing. There is a Mountain Spring Valley, I think it's from Arkansas, water that I do like a lot, and it is a very pure source. They do have carbonated water there you can get from them. However, it is where I live is Centralia, Washington. It's pretty hard to you're not going to find it around here. You'd have to go up to like Whole Foods or PCC up north to get it. So generally speaking, yes, the carbonated water, carbonation in and of itself is not the problem. It's when you add a bunch of citric acid, phosphoric acid. That's where you get all the problems with soda pops. Plus, drinking out of a bunch of aluminum all the time, it's not good for any of us. So if you're going to get carbonated water, get it in a glass, and then even better would be actually just to make your own at home. I went gluten-free after being diagnosed with ITP. Didn't help spike my platelets, but hope it helps my overall health. Yeah, so generally speaking, if we go gluten-free, then we kind of remove a lot of processed food stuff from our diet. The key is when you go gluten-free is not to go just gluten-free on boxes. So, a box might say gluten-free, but it's like it could just be, rice crackers or almond crackers or potato crackers or that kind of thing, is really to try to maintain a whole foods diet. And if you have ITP, I've seen it where in patients where it kind of will wax and wane. It's like it's crazy, and then as long as you get out of the crazy bit, they do pretty good. As long as you are basically taking really good care of yourself, managing stress really well. Last patient I had with ITP was a male, and we did a lot of work with his hormones, and that actually helped a ton to make it so he hasn't had any kind of major issues with ITP in a couple of years. Hopefully he stays with his food regimen and he'll maintain that. But I would think about ITP as just like you think about any other autoimmune-like conditions, and think, okay, if I just decrease overall stress on my system, that's from food, lifestyle, and make sleep's good, hormone response is good, trying to make sure my gut flora is awesome, all those things, making it so that there's very, very few signals that would push my body to into an ITP flare, or even having any other autoimmune condition, just basically trying to lower that threshold. Because we basically all have this threshold of health, or where we're going to go over the top. And so we want to do like all these things to bring it so our margin for error is huge. And a lot of people are just like hanging out right here all the time. And they thought, I'm good. And then all of a sudden one day, maybe they have a stroke, or maybe they have it's like, man, I'm completely exhausted. I can't get out of bed. I'm completely depressed. I just have zero momentum, zero drive for life, that kind of thing. And they think it happened in just one day, but it's been going on forever, where it's slowly but surely been coming up and finally hit the threshold, they fell over, and the body couldn't adapt anymore. So if we create lots of margin, and margin can be created by eating awesome, by putting tons and tons and tons of colors into our body, via all the vegetables and fruits, sweet potatoes, purple potatoes. If you can eat or handle beans well, those can be a source of phytochemicals as well. Nuts and seeds. And then I would ITP, I would look at things like turmeric or curcumin, ginger, ashwagandha, even ginseng, a lot of adaptogenic herbs. Consider talking with your doctor about, looking at those, because there's pretty cool stuff on things related to blood cells and management of blood cells and platelets and white blood cells, and a lot of these different adaptogenic herbs. So check that out. Nice, awesome, Martin. Great to see you in there from Chicago. Sweet. Cool. Yeah, I like to hear how that goes, Maria. So Chelsea, if your hormones are out of whack, you definitely steroids are they're super tough. I always tell patients, if there's any way, I'm not saying we don't have to use steroids sometimes, but if there's any way not to use steroids, we want to not use steroids, such as prednisone, dexamethasone, that kind of thing, because it takes massive effort to get the body back in line after that, because they're so overwhelming to all the tissues, and they kind of age our body really, really, really quickly. So, but there's plenty of ways around it. And if you have been on steroids, something to consider is to look at your adrenal health, and hypothalamus, pituitary gland, everything that's going on there, because those steroids, they are being used as this essentially 100 times cortisol. They're this massive cortisol agent, and at a very high level, and they're suppressing everything else because they are so strong. So you really kind of have to look at. I would definitely gut stuff, pathogens in the digestive tract, and then working on that adrenal function. Make sure that's good to go if you've been on steroids previously. No worries. We all learn all the time. I learn myself all the time. Things like, man, why did I do that before with a patient? We should have done this first, kind of thing. So, all right, Mary. I'm not sure if I had much luck with low platelets. H.Pylori, very low hormones, and a mom of 6. And a mom of 6, awesome. Good, congratulations. My wife's about to be a mom of 5. She's pregnant with 2 twin girls. We're gonna have 3 of them. So it's definitely tough, but challenging. Challenging is a good word. But it's also going to be such a blessing to be a mom of 6 children. Yeah, so you, more than anyone, need to make sure that you get your hormones on point, so you have the energy and vigor and vitality to take care of these kiddos, and feel confident that you're doing what's best for them. And best way to help your kids is to help yourself out and make it so that you have tons and tons of energy. And hormones are a huge part there. But the thing is that you don't actually have to think about hormones as in, I got to get my estrogen, my progesterone, my testosterone right. The best way to get those right is to get your other little things right, like your digestive tract right, getting rid of H.Pylori, making sure your adrenal glands, your thyroid functions good, which is looking at adaptogenic herbs, which I keep seeing that word adaptogenic. But the thing about adaptogenic herbs like rhodiola, ashwagandha, ginseng, Korean ginseng, panax ginseng, eleutherococcus, these herbs, they will help you if you have too much fire going on, like your anxiety, just too almost like edgy all the time, to help bring things down to a more balanced state. Or if you're on the other side where you're really depressed, no momentum, no motivation, super fatigued, just worn out, they can actually help bring you up. So that they're beautiful herbs to consider. And then all right, cool. Let's see. Thank you, Chelsea. Yeah, we're hoping that the babies come forth very quickly the next couple of weeks here. So, all right. Hope this was super helpful. If you guys, we're gonna try to keep these going pretty regular. Keep answering the endless pages of questions here. I always think I can get through way more than I'm able to get through here on here, but hopefully it's helpful. And just think about this. So no matter what health condition you have, even like say ITP. Most people say ITP. There's no cure for ITP. You know, there's you just kind of keep on when it happens like crazy. Yeah, take steroids and we'll try to get back under control again. There's always a way. I've seen not, you know, I'm not like some special, you know, supernatural doctor or anything, but I've seen so many patients who were otherwise told crazy things, you know, given no hope, and they are now thriving in life, and not because they even did some. They didn't do some crazy detox. They didn't do some crazy staying on their head for weeks or something kind of thing to get themselves well. But they did over time consistent dietary changes. They did consistent you know, stress management, lifestyle changes, looking at their relationships, how they interact with people, how they interact with their job, how they interact with their sleep schedule, you know, what are they watching on a regular basis, what are they putting before their eyes and in their mind, and even just how they're managing their families. And I've seen them go from places of just complete, I would say, utter disaster, to now, you know, there's crushing it day after day. And the things that used to think there's no way I could possibly, you know, do those kind of dietary changes. There's no way I could, you know, maintain a schedule like that. They now maintain these schedules, and are in this life rhythm, and that's just how it is. You know, they got, this is their new habits. And so I would strongly consider, if there's any little habit or obstacle that you know of that you're currently thinking about, like, I know this is not like the best thing for me, but I kind of keep going back to it, and you have some kind of condition you're trying to get out of, is to say, okay, what if, you know, I go just 1%, I give myself just this 1% little edge, and I just, you know, I move that habit off to the side, and I stick another really, really, really good, solid, life-giving habit in the way, and see what happens, you know, over the next month, 2 months, 3 months. The deal with habits is they are, they're continual, you know, they just keep happening. And if we lined up all our habits in a line, we would find where we are next year. So if we have a bunch of nice, solid, amazing, life-giving habits, then we're going to end up in a place that's solid, life-giving, and health-promoting. And sure, maybe we don't get all the way there in 1 year. Maybe, say, ITP isn't completely gone, but or your rheumatoid arthritis isn't completely gone, or your migraines aren't completely gone, or you never have any IBS flares anymore. But you're going to be that much closer. Maybe you're 75% of the way there, and you could have otherwise been 75% the other way. So just think, what habit over this next week, what little teeny habit could you change, could I change, and put in another life-giving habit, and, you know, see what we can make happen. All right. Doesn't it take 21 days for a habit? I would say it takes a lot longer than 21 days for a habit to form. A bad habit probably can form within 21 days, but good habits, I would say you have to, even though, yes, there's these statistics that would say 21 days, 40 days, 60 days, 3 months, you can form a habit and it be there forever. Most good life-giving habits, we have to support consciously for, I would say, a minimum of 4 to 6 months. And depending on how aggressive the other habit was, you know, maybe even longer. So when you make a habit, be conscious about it and literally try to make it a habit. Consciously make it a habit, so that then subconsciously it does become a habit. But you're going to have to be pretty conscious about it initially for most habits. All right, so more than likely we're going to be doing this again next week, but I'll put up on here to let you guys know. All right, so everybody have a awesome week, and just consider tonight before you go to bed, writing down one little thing that you're just pumped about for tomorrow. And maybe it's just the cup of coffee you're going to drink, or the walk you're going to have, but I would strongly just recommend just writing it down to encourage yourself before you go to bed tonight. All right? Good night, guys.